I'm going to take a moment now to rest, to have silence and stillness. I'm going to read a piece of writing by Chris Jimerson. It's called "Who Am I Not to Be Blessed?" I did want to preface this by addressing that word blessed. We might, some of us, feel differently about that word, and the idea of being blessed has changed for us as we have kind of evolved in our spiritual journey. I'm going to take some license here, and rather than read the words, "Who am I not to be blessed?" I'm going to read the words, "Who am I not to feel blessed?" Because there is a feeling that we can have in that. But hear these words today. In moonlit shadows, at the edge of night-darkened oak trees, I see it. Across sunny pathways in the buzzing of insects, amongst the flowering forest greenery, I hear it. From the touch of loved ones, the embraces of those gone before me, I feel it. In the poems I love dearly, the songs that speak to me, the sculpture that catches my imagination, the discoveries still to be made, I sense it. It is in the fire of distant suns, the cool drip of waters, the slight chill in the breeze, the laughter of children, no matter what their age, old and young, grown and still small. It is the breath of life, the stardust of souls, the magic of remembrance. Who am I not to surrender to it in gratitude? Who am I not to feel blessed? Rest for a moment in the things you've forgotten to be grateful for, in the things that you're always mindful to be grateful for. Rest in that. Good morning.
Good morning.
If we've never met, my name is John, and I'm grateful to be with you today. Thank you for the beautiful music, Melinda and Cindy, today. Really, really wonderful. The chair that I'm sitting on is rocking slightly, so we may have a YouTube moment. Hold on to that. I'm going to share a few words, and then we will have a time for conversation afterward. So we have reached the first Sunday of Advent, which is actually the official beginning for many Christians of the Christmas season. And it's also the last day of Thanksgiving weekend, which means we can be done with all that annoying giving of thanks stuff, right? We've checked that off our list. We're good to go. It's amazing how things can change in a day, right? Because on Thursday, we pause to reverently reflect on all that we are grateful for. And then on Friday, we ran out to the store or online to get more stuff because all the things we're grateful for need to be augmented and replaced and upgraded, right? We have a problem with temporary Thanksgiving, at least I do. It's a recurring issue for me. I can tend to be gratitude impaired, even when I have no right to be. I want you to hear this phrase. I am so full. Now, many of us have probably uttered this phrase at least once, maybe several times over this weekend. I actually went on a 25th anniversary cruise with my wife the week before Thanksgiving, so I have said that phrase, I am so full, countless times. And usually it has been followed up by me consuming more food. The physical feeling of fullness, it tells our bodies that a need has been met, right? We're conscious of the fact that not everyone has those needs met. But that is what happens to us. We get this feeling that we are no longer nutritionally in lack, that we are calorically sustained. But hunger, physical hunger, it's an alarm, right? Our stomachs feel an emptiness and we respond by filling them. And at some point we reach capacity and then we have a choice. We can stop there or we can push ourselves beyond capacity to that which we don't need but do want. I'm not going to judge you if you happen to be in that category this weekend. We can actually respond sometimes as if we were hungry even though we are not actually hungry any longer. We can actually out-desire our needs, or we can choose to listen to the fullness. Now, fullness can be more than just the physical feeling that we have when we leave the table. It can be an awareness of our good fortune or our blessings, depending on your religious worldview. It can be the intellectual realization that we have all we need in our lives, that we actually have enough. In fact, we have more than enough, that we are full to overflowing. We can choose to live in this world in abundance and not scarcity. If you were to look at your life from the outside, from the way you respond to adversity or to change or just the normal events of the day, where do you tend to reside? In abundance or scarcity? Do you operate with a fear that you will not have enough of something, or do you move through the world with a generosity that says you realize your relative fullness in this life? Because though we can feel an emotional fullness at times, that belief that we lack nothing, that we can stop striving and wanting and chasing after, for many of us, these moments are infrequent and fleeting, right? Contentment tends to be one of those when-then promises that we make to ourselves. When I get this work project done, then I'll be able to be more available to my family. When I lose another 5 pounds, then I can make peace with the mirror and the scale. When I get a little more money in the bank, then I can breathe easy. When this election is passed, then I can stop obsessing on social media. When I get through this health challenge, then I can stop worrying and have peace in my heart. But the problem, friends, with the when-then propositions is that they almost always make gratitude future-focused. It's forever a carrot dangling in front of ourselves that we are guaranteed never to reach, because our ideas of happiness or contentment anticipate a coming feeling that is circumstance dependent, but in reality, gratitude is always perspective dependent. Gratitude is always a choice that we make in the present. Now, growing up, I can remember that layaway was a big thing. Doesn't seem to be anymore, but layaway was really an important thing, right? If you wanted to purchase something, an item for your home or a gift for someone that you couldn't really afford, you could have the store hold it for you, and you could pay a little by little by little, day by day, until one day you could walk in and finally get what you wanted originally. We don't put contentment on layaway, friends. We have to pay for that in cash right now. You cannot claim contentment in the future. You have to hold it in this day. And many of us have become addicted to striving and wanting and chasing after because we're conditioned to be restless and unsatisfied with something. We have grown so used to seeking the more and the better that we are waiting on that we miss the good that is right here, right now. Now, we know this, right? We know intellectually that Thanksgiving shouldn't be a date on the calendar, that it shouldn't be an occasion or an event. It shouldn't require a holiday for us to feel abundance and overflow. It should be our default setting, but it isn't. We rarely walk around looking at our imperfect circumstances and our imperfect relationships and our imperfect families and our imperfect marriages and our imperfect economic or physical condition, saying, wow, I am so full. We seldom find ourselves amazed at the abundance or the overflow of our lives. Greek philosopher Epicurus says, do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. Now, sometimes we lack gratitude because we miss what we already have, but other times our gratitude is actually impaired for a much more noble and worthwhile reason. I believe that people of empathy can have difficulty with contentment because we're not only focused on our lack, but the lack of others. We recognize our interdependence with everyone around us. We're not just fixated on what we get at the table, but we are aware always of people who don't even have a seat. And so we feel personal gratitude, but secondhand grief. We do recognize our relative privilege, but we don't have peace with that privilege because of what it says about those who have less. See, it's one thing to be satisfied with our progress and our condition and not need to change those things in order to feel grateful, but it's another thing altogether to be okay with someone else's situation and tell them that they should be grateful. Their suffering or their lack or their trauma should bother us, and it should impair our relative ease in the world. I was talking to a friend of mine online, and we were talking about gratitude, and she was in a really angry state. And she said, what am I going to be grateful for? The extremists running the House of Representatives, am I going to be grateful for that? She said, am I going to be grateful for the mass shootings? We've had 2 this week. She said, am I going to be grateful for the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that I'm seeing all over social media? Am I supposed to give thanks for my MAGA mother who I don't recognize anymore? And as she began to talk with such fury, I could see in her the weight of being aware of other people's suffering. You have that too. People who work for justice and desire equality are by nature change agents. We're always looking ahead, always pushing hard toward the new thing coming, and as a result, we are troubled by the current thing. We are, as people of faith, morality, and conscience, adept problem solvers, which means we're also keenly aware of the problems to begin with. And so we don't fully rest because others are not able to rest. In the face of so much discouraging news, my friends, we all want to create a different reality, which is a good and it's a beautiful thing. But as a result, we tend to fail to appreciate reality as it is currently configured. We're prone to exasperation, to frustration, to anger, to not being able to look at life in the moment and simply say, I am so full, thank you. German theologian Meister Eckhart says, if the only prayer you ever said was thank you, that would be enough. Now, if I prompted you and I asked you to express what you're grateful for, even those of us who, like me, are naturally gratitude impaired, we could rather easily name things we consider to be blessings or good fortune, our families, our jobs, our physical health, our financial stability, whatever we're cognizant of. Yet as important as and admirable as that is, I think it makes our gratitude sort of conditional, right? It's a fair weather thankfulness, and it leaves us dependent on favorable circumstances for appreciative hearts. But the greater aspiration for us is to figure out how to be grateful for horrible things, for all that we might see as reasons for hopelessness and cause for despair because of what is waiting there for us. Can we overcome the barriers to gratitude? For example, grief is a barrier to gratitude because loss is ever present. Since I lost my father 9 years ago, all days but holidays have been different. The absence of him is ever present. And once grief visits you, you're irrevocably altered. Your story is changed, right? No matter what happens, those chairs will always be empty. Those spaces left by someone's absence are never going to be filled. And so grief is always hovering close by. But for me now, the empty chair, I'm doing my best to see that empty chair and have gratitude for my grief as confirmation that I had people worth missing. I'm also trying to be more aware of the universal sense of loss around me. Every single person you pass by has lost something, has lost someone. There are 8 billion separate funerals happening, and if we can lean into that, maybe we can try to be a source of kindness and gentleness to them and even have gratitude for our place in their grief story. Physical health and aging can be barriers to grief, to gratitude. People say to me all the time, at least you have your health. Last year I had a brain tumor. I said, hey, surprise, now what? But this time last year I was recovering from brain surgery. I couldn't lift more than 10 pounds. I couldn't bend over. I couldn't blow my nose. I couldn't taste anything. But as those small gifts started to be given back to me, I celebrated them. I can't tell you the joy I felt when my sense of smell returned. And the waiter, the way he looked at me in such an odd way because I was just celebrating a turkey sandwich. But a year later, I often skip those things as a list of my blessings because I've forgotten how good it felt to have them returned. When we notice a different person in the mirror than the one we've grown accustomed to seeing, or we face new physical limitations, we usually see these things as defeats, as reason for mourning, as deficiencies or losses. But can we see the physical wear and tear on our bodies as souvenirs from the journey? Our faces creased by hours of laughter and hard work, our bodies beautifully weathered by decades of morning runs and playtime with our toddlers and dances with people we love. Can we find gratitude for aging bodies that remind us that we have lived well and long? My wife said to me the other day, hey, you should be glad you're getting older. It's a reminder that you've had so far a really long life. And I said, I'm okay with that. I just want to look like I led a life not as long as the one I've lived. But there we are. Hateful people can be barriers to gratitude. We can look around and lament people we know who have embraced ugliness, or we can look at people in general from a distance and despair at their collective cruelty. But these things can also be fuel for thankful hearts. I remember being in South Florida. I was at an event. I had just done some speaking, and I was with these 3 women who had put on the event, and they ordered drinks. And as the drinks arrived, one of them raised her glass and said with a smile, "Thank you, Donald Trump." And then she proceeded to tell me about her personal transformation in the wake of the 2016 election and the community of affinity that has developed as she's found her voice and the activism that was created and the relationship with these 2 women who she hadn't met before. I think the people who oppose us, or the people that we are bothered by, or the people who malign us, help us clarify what matters to us. They help us find our hills worth dying on. They become catalysts for change. And in my life, I know that my adversaries, whether up close, family members or bosses or people in church, no, I'm kidding, or from a distance, politicians or public figures, those people have allowed or sometimes forced me to access reservoirs of strength and creativity and perseverance that I never knew were there. So can we find gratitude for what we've learned about ourselves when people have made life miserable for us? Perhaps the gratitude can come from embracing what matters to us, becoming more engaged in the world and finding our voices that we would not have found any other way. Our mental and emotional challenges can be a barrier to gratitude. I'll admit, as someone who has struggled with a mental illness for a long time, it's difficult to have a gratitude for that, especially during times like the holidays when there seems to be a pressure to be effusively happy. But like all personal burdens, depression and anxiety can prepare you to be kinder toward those around you because there is an empathy that you can nurture toward people who are also hurting. And when you understand what it's like to have to overcome your own mind in order to experience the peace and joy that others simply receive, then you're more aware of that in other people. Our mistakes and failures can be barriers to gratitude. Do you ever lay awake and think about something stupid that you said in high school? Because I did that last night. I moved on to other things more recently, but then I had these exchanges from 20, 30 years ago. Painter Bob Ross said, "We don't make mistakes, only happy accidents." He believed you could craft something wonderful, a happy little tree, even out of a mess. And that's usually something we only discover retrospectively, right? In the moment, losing a job or a relationship or screwing up something as a parent or missing a mark we tried so hard to attain in our careers or our personal lives can feel like a glorious cluster bomb. But we know that we rarely find maturity or growth or wisdom in the victories or successes. It's almost always when everything hits the fan and we miss the mark, or we hit our limits, or we fall to our knees, and whatever feels like a colossal failure to you right now, can you have gratitude for what you are becoming in the middle of it? And more than anything, I think for people like you, the pain in the world can be a barrier to gratitude. The woman who asked me if she could feel grateful for all these terrible things, I replied to her that she could feel grateful for her recognizing them as terrible and her ability to do something in the small and the close and the here and the now to change those things. And I told her about my friend Lori, who was on the ground in Colorado Springs at Club Q, and she was there hours after the shooting. And she was offering her support, and she was offering embraces, and she was helping coordinate giving. I reminded her of the resilience of the queer community, of the outpouring of support. I reminded her that is not winning when people like her are still there. Again, gratitude is the choice that we make or choose not to make. Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh says, "We are very good at preparing to live, but not very good at living. We know how to sacrifice 10 years for a diploma, and we're willing to work very hard to get a job, a car, a house, and so on. But we have difficulty remembering that we are alive in the present moment, the only moment there for us to be alive." So I guess that's pretty much the reminder. You're alive. Because gratitude for us is something that we can hold in this moment. Hope is a propellant forward. Gratitude is present focus. It is savoring this breath, appreciating this version of life, celebrating this day, looking at the lines on this face. Gratitude sits with contentment in today, and it dwells on what is already good there if nothing else changed. And gratitude, friends, allows us to be present, and it becomes our generosity. It becomes the way that we give. It becomes fuel for our activism. It directs our path. It shows us the people in our world who we need to care for. And we need to be fully present to see people and be aware of their need and correctly positioned to respond to it. And these three things, people and their need and our response, are so very easy to miss because a million things threaten to distract our attention away. Most of us are perpetually missing the present, always being pulled by discontent or worry just slightly into the past or just a few steps ahead of where we are. But gratitude helps us live the lives that are currently in progress. Your children are growing at blinding speed. Your friends are struggling with divorce. Your parents are getting older. People around you are worried, and they deserve the best of you. Today, our practice should be something more than fair weather thankfulness, not just gratitude for the clear blessings and pleasant things, but for the gifts that come disguised as the terrible. It's easy to be grateful for the fragrant flowers in this life, but not the putrid manure and decomposition they spring from. So today, give thanks even for the stinking messes, because something beautiful is growing there. Most of all, take a second and realize, boy, I am so full.